I always say I learn from people. That's why I like to have conversations. I take things that they say, listen to it, kind of play it out in my own head and think about how I can apply it and whatnot. As my pops kind of said, he was like, hey, you can't always be on the rational side and totally negate your emotions because you'll miss important times. So I always give them the other side. I try and play the devil's advocate with my client a little bit to a degree where they know I'm still obviously on their side. But at the end of the day, it's still a privilege. It's still awesome to be able to own property and put that forward.
So here we are, Rate of Success podcast. Super excited today. We have the one and only Matt Herbeck, who is here. So Matt is an attorney in my market. He does an amazing job. Has been dabbling in social media and doing some great videos. So he's the perfect fit to come and talk. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit how long you've been an attorney and how long you've been in the business?
Okay, yeah. So I've been an attorney. I've been practicing law in some way, shape, or form since 2009. I was a 7-Eleven prosecutor, DuPage County for a short time, did that, and then moved on to insurance defense, essentially, and asbestos litigation in the city. Did that for a couple of years, and then kind of with a little bit of a crossover, found my business partner, or I knew my business partner, Robin Kramer, and she was doing real estate. I was working out on a treadmill, and she came up and she's like, "Hey, Matt, I know you went to law school. Are you past the bar? Where are you at?" And I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." She's like, "How would you like to do some real estate?" And so that's kind of where it all began. She showed me the ropes, went through it all, and I don't know, let's see, 10, 15, 16 years later.
Wow, it's crazy. So like we always say, like nobody ends up in real estate by design. Mm-hmm. We always end up here by mistake. Yeah. Like nobody like says when I become older, I'm going to get into the real estate market. We always end up here by mistake. So you've obviously ended up there and by mistake on a treadmill. Yeah.
Absolutely. And pretty crazy though too is with regards to kind of real property and everything for my law school classes, it was actually my best class. I ended up Cali in that class. It's the only one at Cali did. At Dayton, and pretty crazy that it ended up being that because I didn't expect to get into it even after I did well in it. I was like, wow, how did I do that well?
Well, and so you started, so what was when you first got into real estate, what year was that when you started?
It would have been 20, and I believe it was end of 2010, beginning of 2011.
So perfect timing. That was an interesting time in the real estate market. So how much has changed from then until now? Because I mean, that was I've been in the business since 2002. Mm-hmm. So, 2008 to 2010 was interesting, but it got really interesting because 2010 is when things started. We started doing sales again, but there's a lot of short sales. A lot of foreclosures, which take on a whole different, I mean, nothing what you're doing today. Yeah,
it was one of those things where I got into the market. I didn't really know people walked away with money from a table when they sold a property. I was used to everything. We were cranking short sales. Credit to my partner, Robin, who kind of really spearheaded that market and was probably one of the biggest short sale closing attorneys in the state. Remember, she told me a story how she called Bank of America to say, "Hey, listen, I'm looking to do this thing. It's called the short sale." And she had to get somebody else on the phone, had to explain it to them, basically, before they had a Equator, before they had things going. So definitely was different. So I learned from somebody that obviously knew 100% what was going on, and it was great for me to kind of see the tough transactions. We always joked, we tell a lot of our agents, listen, we can do your easy ones because we're doing your hard ones. Yeah. And but definitely different to see. The only time people were walking away with money was when it was like somebody that was in their 70s or whatnot had already kind of paid off their loan a long time ago and had a lot of equity in their property prior to. So
crazy. So did you always know you wanted to be an attorney? I think I read somewhere that you wanted to be when you were younger.
Yeah. So I think I was like 12 years old. My folks, we didn't have cable television growing up. We just had the standard 2, 5, 7, 9. Yeah. My parents let me watch the show The Practice. Yeah. Dylan McDermott, Cameron Manheim. I'm trying to think. But either way, it was a great show. It got me a little bit into that not in real estate, but into the attorney kind of sentiment. And I mean, just the conversations I'd have probably with my dad, the negotiations, things I'd do that I'm sure I'll get in return at some point here. But nonetheless, definitely put me on that track to wanting to do it. And then I saw the movie 12 Angry Men, not the original, but the remake, George C. Scott, Jack Lemmon. I saw that movie, and I think from pretty much that point forward, I was like, this is what I want to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then growing up, playing a lot of sports, right? So how much do you lean on that experience with sports day to day? Because people that play sports competitively or enjoy sports definitely have a different mindset of how they tackle their day to day life. Because we're always kind of trying to get back to that competitive, where you like want to compete. So how do you leverage that each and every day, and how does that affect your business now?
Yeah, well, I'm a game player. Everything's in some way, shape, or form. Everything's kind of a game. Way it's formatted, how you can handle it, and you can play games really tough and really kind of like regimented. Yeah, or you can play them a little loose and figure out other ways to go about doing it. It's a lot of times either who you're playing the game with, who you're playing the game against. Just kind of all the elements.
Yeah.
So I love to get the competitive juices flowing, whether it's golf, tennis, now pickleball a little bit more. Yeah. My sister's got me going on pickleball a lot more here, which I enjoy. And having played a lot of tennis growing up, pretty much probably was my main sport. I definitely like it. It's easier for me.
Did you play college sports?
So I was an assistant coach for the girls varsity tennis team at Miami University.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Ray Reppert, head coach there at that time, had seen me hitting and was like, hey, would you be interested in hitting with the girls team? And I said, I don't know. They didn't have a guys team there, unfortunately. So I just was on the club team hitting with another buddy. And he had asked us both, and I was like, yeah, I mean, what does that entail? He was like, oh, it's 5 days a week. There's 11 girls on the team, 3 hours a day. And I go, and at that age, I was like, oh, you had me at 11 girls. I'm in. Sounds great.
This is awesome.
Let's do this. Yeah, absolutely. So, so as a college freshman, starting to kind of get into that. Then sophomore year, playing a lot more every day, being there. Then junior year, traveling a little bit more with them. It was a lot of fun. It was it got me back to that kind of like competitive team kind of camaraderie. Yeah. And which I really did like. Going into school, I was thinking about playing sports, different places that I had opportunities to play. But I went to Miami University, walked onto that campus. It was actually my third school at the time. Yeah. And I walked onto the campus. My dad had kind of said, hey, I got into U of I, which was going to be my kind of go, where I was planning my safety school in case I didn't get into Notre Dame. And so I was like, well, I can cross Miami off the list. And he goes, well, you had it on there for a reason. Let's go check it out at least. Yeah. And so we did. 15 minutes in, I was like, this is where I want to go to school. And my dad was, whoa, wait, what? Yeah. I was like, this is where I want to go. I can feel it. So either way, I'm very happy that it played out that way. Yeah. And obviously led me down this path. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like being in sports and kind of going that, like you said, you kind of treat it like a game. So, do you lean on that like every single, the reason I like to dig in on this a little bit is because like, I've worked with you and I'll lean on you. Sometimes I'll call you on stuff that we're not even working on because I love how you handle things. You're very, and maybe you don't feel this way, but you're always very level-headed when you're on the phone. And I don't see a lot of emotion. I'm sure behind the scenes there's always emotion, but like, is that kind of your sports background? Because in sports, like you can't let emotion take over. So do you lean on that a lot?
A lot. I talk about it a lot. I like to talk. It's one of all my friends, they know it. I probably sometimes too much, but I enjoy it. Yes, I lean on that side. It's the rational, emotional brain type thing. I have a lot of conversations with it, whether it's my dad, my family, my wife, friends. I talk about sometimes being where even like the rational side is almost too much, where I don't allow the emotion to get in maybe as much as I should as well. It plays out great for work purposes. I mean, it's 100% the way to go because again, we always talk, even when I purchased my own property, I had my business partner, Robin, handle the deal because you have a hard time separating from that emotional side and you want it because you want it so bad. Certain parts about it, you get it tied to it. So you don't think rationally the same way or you miss out on certain spots where you'd otherwise realize it when you're doing it for somebody else. So when I am working, it is, the rational side kicks in and it's hard to always do. I want to always do that. Yeah. But as my Pops kind of said, he was like, hey, you can't always be on the rational side and totally negate your emotions because you'll miss important times. You'll miss things that otherwise is important in life. That if you're always on to the next and thinking of the next in a rational way and you can't kind of embrace the emotional side of you, you're going to miss out on moments. And life's a lot about moments. So I take a lot of what, I mean, still to this day, it is funny how the older you get, the more you look back and you go, oh, my dad was right about that.
Exactly. Yeah,
he was right about that.
So it's funny how that works out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because in the moment, sometimes we're emotional or you almost fight it in a lot of 100%. Ways where you don't want to, but later on, you're like, oh, yeah, that was exactly how I should have handled that. Or you find yourself giving the same advice
Oh yeah.
that your dad said to you like
100%.
time and times again,
Yeah.
and you're saying it, and you walk away and you're like, oh God, now I sound like my dad. Like I find myself doing that all the time. Yeah.
I always say, I tell everyone that when I have conversations, I've already had the conversation. It's already been, I've had it in my head. I go through it so quickly where I know what's coming out and how it's going to play out before it plays out, which makes it most of the time seamless, but it also, sometimes it will get redundant or repetitive. Where I'm like, I already said that, but no, I had that conversation in my head. So
I love something you said. You talked about the emotional side of it, where you had your partner handle your own transaction. Because one of the things I say all the time to my clients is, whenever we have an issue, I'll always say, like, we can communicate with the realtor or the clients, but go to the attorney first. Let them know, okay? Because to me, that's the biggest value of a real estate attorney in the transaction. Is their job, essentially, is to take the emotion out of it.
100%.
And a lot of times you can have an issue that you think would kill a deal, but if you take it to the attorney and both attorneys talk it over and work it out, all the emotion, all the phone calls, all the chaos that typically would happen, because in some states, and I don't know if people realize this, but in some states we don't have attorneys, okay? And like the back and forth and the emotion, the amount of emails, it's like mind-boggling, okay? But you can get two attorneys, two good attorneys that can solve 99% of the issues with nobody, because it's not emotion. It's the best part. Do you find that that's kind of one of your biggest values in a transaction?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes, is because people want you to be excited about their stuff too. So you have to balance it where you show that excitement for them, and purchasing property is a very exciting time. A lot of people think everyone does it. And it depends on the area you're in. Obviously, you see a lot more people around you kind of potentially doing it. But at the end of the day, it's still a privilege. It's still awesome to be able to own property and put that forward. So it does come with that emotion. So I try and shoot people straight always. Sometimes you can be considered the bearer of bad news. You can be, but I don't want to necessarily beat around the bush either. I want to give people really what the scenario is, so that they kind of can then deal with it in whatever way they need to, and I like to help through that process. But again, the sky's never falling. I always know ways or figure out ways, and that's the gameplay, whether it's calling the attorney and you're having a very frank conversation with them about something, to try and get two people or two sides that are realistically wanting the same thing. One side wants to sell, they want the money to come to them at the end of the day, and the other person wants to purchase. And at the end of the day, that's one nice thing about real estate, is the adversarialness. While I like that too, and have those moments where you like to have that adversarial.
Well, that's the competitive.
Absolutely. I also love making a puzzle fit together. I love that game that comes to where I can put it all together and I can see the finished product, which is my client really excited at the end of the day. Because we always say too, is at the very end, that's when you want that sell. That's when that excitement can come out, when they're like, okay, yay, I have this property. You don't want people to be sour in the end. It hurts the process. Even if during the process there might have been some kind of sour moments or whatnot, the grand scheme of things, looking at the big picture, planning for future, doing things, and not always worrying about am I getting what I want right now? Because right now doesn't always necessarily matter, especially if at the end of the day you get what you want in the long run. You forget about the individual losses. Maybe.
No, absolutely. And do you find it, because you come up, I always help buyers, most of the time I'm representing buyers, so I don't have to wear both sides of. So do you find it like where you're jumping side to side, where you're giving an argument for a seller and then you're going on the buy side and you're really almost like doing is that easy to jump back and forth?
I try, absolutely. I try to give even my buyers, I say, listen, we're gonna approach this scenario like this. We're gonna ask for whatever we're asking for, and you got to now let's think about how the seller is gonna think about this. Let's plan again for the overall. While you might want to get 10 grand out of some repair issues or things, we also want to look at the big picture of this real estate transaction. We're maybe asking for a later closing date or something. We're going to ask for whatever else. If we squeeze them to death right here in the beginning, you're going to be less likely to get anything else the rest of the way. There's going to be a little give and take where you want to also be cognizant of what's to come as opposed to what is the right now. So I always give them the other side. I try and play the devil's advocate with my client a little bit, to a degree where they know I'm still obviously on their side. And sometimes I have to reiterate it, that, listen, I'm just telling you how the other attorney is going to approach this with their client. as opposed to always saying, hey, listen, yep, you're right, let's go. I want to be able to give them something else to think about, because with the emotion involved, you don't always think about the other side.
Yeah.
You think about what you are looking for right now, as opposed to kind of how will this play out and how could it affect me on another scenario.
And how do you deal with, because one of the things we see a lot, and this is going to be a difficult question, but maybe not that difficult, but like, how do you deal with, because sometimes, realtors are obviously referring you, okay? And they may have an opinion about something, but then when it gets to you where you're actually making the legal decision on that, it could be a conflict. Like, as far as your opinion may be very different, but the client, and I see this happen a lot, the client has an expectation because of conversations that happen leading up to, a particular situation, okay? And I'm sure you have some realtors and lenders that are very involved, and then I'm sure you have some that don't want anything involved. They're handing you the contract and say, handle it. So how do you deal with those expectations of the client where you're kind of like the decision maker, in the end, and it may conflict with something else that the client, the realtor, or the lender is doing? Like, how do you handle those situations? I'm sure they come up a lot.
Yeah. So first thing is my client's always the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
My license is and
Of
my
course,
client
yeah.
are what's going to continue my kind of my good relationships that I have. Everyone we work with, obviously working with you, a good amount, knowing you do things the right way. And there are, unfortunately, I tell people there are people that don't do stuff the right way. And I do see that as well, which is unfortunate. But being able to work with the right partners, they understand. So all my good agents that I work with, they're all the growth that I've had, the growth that I've seen they have. We all work together in a way in which it better satisfies our clients' needs, which ultimately is whether they know it at the moment or not. It might be, hey, they got the transaction, everything went through, or hey, I've had calls before where the client calls me and they go, listen, I found something else and I'm so excited about how the previous one played out now, even though I was so disappointed. I'm so happy you gave me the information you gave me to make me understand that, hey, it wasn't maybe the right scenario, or things were tough at that point and it was hard to see then, but it's great to see now. I think I'm a big believer in everything works out the way it's supposed to work out. I think that sometimes it gets lost, and I think there are agents out there that are at all costs, they want the deal to go through. And I'm just not that way. And while I think there's a place for that and there's people that are okay with that, I think that I'd rather have, again, a client at the end of the day that's very happy that a year afterwards, 2 years afterwards, look back and go, wow, I'm so happy I had the team behind me that were behind me, as opposed to them coming 2 years later saying, man, this was the worst decision I made
100%.
and it really set me back. Because real estate is, again, the biggest really investment you're going to make in your life, whether it's your home you're purchasing or investment property. It's still an investment. It's an investment in your future. It's just an investment in what you kind of want to do with your life. So I don't.
Do you
take
feel
it
like you
lightly.
attract the realtors and the people you work with because of how you are and the standards that you set for your business, and that prevents you from having to work with a lot of people? That's how I always believe, is like, when you have a set standard and you believe in things and you do things the right way, you're going to attract the people that respect that and value that, and that's who you're going to end up working with.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And they do come. You kind of get a little bit where you get some that come and go. I've had ones where they go, they're working with somebody else, and all of a sudden they come back and they go, man, I don't know why I left. Like, I don't know why I was not referring business over to you. I realize it at this point. And then you get other ones where it just doesn't necessarily jive. Like certain things, like no kind of negative thoughts about the ones that, hey, it just our personalities or the way it played out didn't necessarily work. I'm a big communicator. Again, as I said before, I like to talk.
Yeah.
I like to sometimes maybe extra communication sometimes, where some agents don't want necessarily to have conversations about everything. But most of the agents I work with, they want to know, they want to feel like they know each step. The worst thing a lot in this business is being caught off guard, where all of a sudden a client's calling you upset about something, and whether it's the agent, the lender, the attorney, where we don't know, wait, okay, back up. What's the problem? And so I try to make sure that everyone's aware, obviously within my client's wishes. If there's something that they want to keep totally private, again, that's what I'm here to do for them. But most of the time they want everyone to be aware so that we can best assist throughout the process. So I think the agents that we do have great relationships with, that work together a lot. I really cherish those relationships. If a lot of them have become friends, people that I can lean on, like you were saying. I love to be able to call you where I have a lender question. I know I probably did about a week ago or so.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
and
we connected on that.
And it's something where then I can rely on those so that I know that I'm giving the best service to my clients as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so I guess if we shift a little bit, like, from a consumer standpoint, working with a real estate attorney, there's a lot of like misunderstandings of, what a real estate attorney does. For me personally, I've told you this right before we start, I think it's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle because of the emotional piece, okay? But more so because most people don't understand. I've been involved in many transactions where the attorney's not a real estate attorney, and most people don't even understand that. Can you talk a little bit about being an attorney versus a real estate attorney and what the actual difference is? Because you've been on both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's like every area of practice, like if you're going to go get, you're going to go to a doctor and you have to have foot surgery.
Yeah.
You're not going to probably go to a heart surgeon. Could they do the job? Probably. But is it going to be done to the exact specifications of the way the foot surgeon would handle it? No. It's the same thing with real estate. Is we all have family, friends, people that are maybe an attorney in some way, shape, or form. They're really good at what they do. I'm not necessarily to my own horn, but I'm really good at what I do, and it's because I've had a lot of experience now in that area. I wouldn't, and again, we get calls all the time. I like all my clients to treat me as, hey, I got a guy.
Yeah.
So I always tell them when we're done, hey, if you got any questions on things, I got a guy. Will I necessarily handle the scenario when they call me? If it's a criminal issue or it's a civil suit type thing?
Yeah.
No, I might not necessarily do it, but at this point, I've developed a lot of relationships with people in the industry that I trust, that I know are going to handle those things correctly for them. So that's where I can kind of add that additional guidance. But yeah, if Uncle Bob's doing a transaction, well, I mean, the first thing we always see, we get a contract. First thing I look at always, I go right to the last page and I go, who's that attorney? And sometimes it's filled in, sometimes it's not at that point. But I want to know who is the other person on their side.
This is why I wanted to bring this up.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell clients all the time, is that the real estate attorney circle is not as big as you would think.
Yeah.
Okay? And you guys all have to communicate with each other every single day. Yeah. And you guys are negotiating stuff every single day. And it's one of the few industries where you still have to sit across the table and a lot of times from another attorney, and you have to create those relationships. And the one thing I will say is that, if you use an outside attorney, you're going to have a much harder time. You may save some money because it's Uncle Bob, okay? But you're going to lose most likely in the negotiations because you guys negotiate stuff all the time. Yeah. And when you call up an attorney that you work with every single week and you're asking for something, they're going to look at it a much different way, especially if it's a big ask, because they know you, they know of your integrity, they know your character, and they know that if you're asking for it, that you believe that it's something that's in the best interest of your client versus if they're asking that same big ask from someone else, they're going to be like, this guy's not even a real estate attorney. Yeah. Like, we're not going to, this is not how we operate. And they're going to immediately, so I don't think people realize how much that track record in the relationships between all the attorneys really, because what they're typically going to approve, what they don't, all their, I don't want to say weaknesses, but you said sports.
It's a game.
It's a game.
It's still a game. You still know who you're dealing with, and you want to deal with it in a sportsman-like manner as well.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking to take advantage of people, but again, as I said before, my client comes first.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. So if there's certain ways I have to finagle things to make it work, all within the law and in the way it's supposed to be, then I'm going to definitely do that. It's great to have those relationships. I'm a big proponent. I always tell realtors I meet and stuff, hey, I'm not looking to wreck any relationships or whatnot, because I wouldn't like that if any other one else coming in trying to wreck relationships. I'm here to be kind of to provide advice, to provide an opportunity if you need that relationship or that referral partner. But all my colleagues, there's so many. I mean, we have a list in our office. We know who does what, how they do it, things that they're bad about, so that we can, again, give our clients. So there's certain attorneys that, hey, they're fantastic. They may be a little slow. Things don't get returned as quickly. It's great to understand and look at my list and be like, oh, yeah, I remember such and such law firm. Yeah, they can be a little slow on the response. So I can let my client know, hey, nothing to worry about. I just know that their office is a little bit more kind of just takes their time with getting things situated. So it gives, again, another element to giving to our clients, to give them a better understanding and a better kind of overall process feel for how it plays out.
So I'm big on team and the people that I have around me, okay? Yeah. But I always say a attorney is only as good as the team So why don't you talk a little bit about like what happens behind the scenes with the team and like how you've structured that? Because you have an amazing team. Yeah, we work with a lot of attorneys. So like, I know it's something that's important to you, but it kind of goes back to the sports theme of, you know, you can have a great player, but if you don't have the pieces around you, it doesn't really matter. So talk a little bit about that on your...
So first, obviously, again, Robin Kramer gave me my start, got me into this business, and I owe a lot to her and how things played out. She's a great person to be able to bounce ideas off. Just seems like she makes the right decisions always consistently. And I envy that because I want to hopefully myself to make those right decisions. So I give a lot of credit to Robin but my team, and I will say this to the camera, where are we at here? Okay, Shonda, Dante, Morgan Bowers, you guys are, and Daisy, you guys are fantastic. And I again, owe so much to you guys for your ability to keep me sane, to provide so much help and effort to me on a daily basis, and to our firm. It's a pride. It's a team. It's where we work hard together and we have fun together as well. So it's everyone knows.
Is there something like that? Because I always say like you have to have a special type of person to make you always look like the hero. Yeah. Because not everyone, it's a natural that you want to get credit, but like you in our jobs, like our teams make us look like the hero always. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Like they make it look like we're superhuman behind the scenes, but really we have all these people that are there to make us look good. But that takes a very particular type of person to be able to do that and be able to understand, hey, Matt needs to look good, you know, so I need to do all these things. So when the client calls or whenever, like he's looking like he's involved in every single, and that takes a special person.
Absolutely. So the kind of with a little bit of where our structure is Daisy handles a lot of kind of behind the scenes clerical stuff, moving things around, keeping us organized for the most part, making sure that our e-file system and everything that we're getting in is being cycled and pushed to where it needs to be pushed, and she does a great job with that. Morgan handles our purchase side transactions, which again is stressful because generally on the purchase side, there's even a little bit more emotion involved. She handles all our scheduling and does a great job with getting me where I need to go. For the most part on time, not her fault. Most of that would be then my fault for me not getting there and stuff. But, and then Shonda handles all our sales, and the organizational skills that the three of them have are really incredible. While I like to be organized, you take a lot and put a lot on your plate. Sometimes it's harder to be that, and I'm still stuck in I don't know about you, but I write my calendar out and whatnot, and if it's not written, it's going to be harder for me to get. So they do a great job of just of dealing with clients too. I mean, I get it all the time. My clients will say, "Hey, wow, so nice, so helpful, so patient," and I do love that aspect of it, because when you do this on a daily basis and you have a lot of people with the same issues or the same, like where they think they're the only ones, and it gets frustrating because it has some redundancy to it. They stay level-headed and they stay very like nice, and it's hard sometimes. Cause sometimes you want to be like, oh my god.
I think I always say the worst comes out in people when they buy a house. Like you can have the nicest person. When they buy a house, like you've gone through it, it creates a reaction that most people just, it's a big expense.
It's a big,
it's the unknown. It's, you've heard horror stories.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you can't react to that. You almost just have to be resigned to the fact that things are going to be, overwhelming. Yeah. And you just have to know that you're going to have that, so do you, like, how do you build that culture in your office to where, because you have an amazing team that doesn't happen by accident?
I think I'm always, I tell this to a lot of people, and I see it on a daily basis in other businesses, and whether it's real estate businesses or restaurants you go to, you can see the areas and where the owners are heavily involved, where they're doing stuff. I'd say, like, put it in perspective with like a restaurant. No owner should ever be too high to where they can't go clean a toilet in their restaurant, or they can't sweep up the floor, or they can't go help a hostess or help a waiter deliver some food to the table. Just things like that really, I think, you lead by example. You show that, hey, I'm right here we're in the trenches together. We're trying to make this happen. I think that's generally the best thing. When you start saying, "Oh, I can't do that," or I've done that, I've been there, done that."
Yeah.
I think you start alienating your staff, because it is a team effort. We're all in it together to try and make for happy experiences, so we can all go home, reap the fruits of our labor, and enjoy our family life and enjoy kind of what we like to do outside of that. And I think that helps. I think naturally I would love to say that my staff gained all of that from us being together, but again, Robin hired really well. I hired well. It played out. It was the people that are a part of us were already awesome coming in, and we just helped cultivate things in a little way, the same way they helped cultivate me to make me a better person. I always say I learn from people. That's why I like to have conversations. I learn from people. I take things that they say, listen to it, kind of play it out in my own head, and think about how I can apply it and whatnot. And I think when you do that, you kind of build something from yourself, and you build something in this way.
Well, I just think it makes, from a client standpoint, a consumer standpoint, to have that team behind you makes such a big difference, because that is like what people refer is that experience. Mm-hmm. And you and I can be great, but if we don't have the people behind us, like none of it matters.
It's like paper flying around the air. I'm like,
because we can't be everything to everyone, because we're out face to face with people or on the phone. So it makes a big difference. So from the buyer seller side, what are the biggest mistakes right now that you see buyers making? And then we'll get into sellers. But do you see some things consistently where buyers, are struggling, whether it be the market, and the only reason I say that is that it's been hard. I work with buyers every single day. I have people that need to sell, but it's been hard to be a buyer, because you've had this like unreal, you had 2008 to whatever. So you had this whole time. The average first time home buyer age last year was 38. So think about that. That's 38. That's, think about, we talked about stocks before we started, but like, think about the time you lose in the market from 28 to 38. Like that's critical time. Yeah, huge. It's massive. So now you're at 38. Okay. So what do you see buyers, the mistakes that you see them making?
I think a lot of times people are a little afraid to dip their toe in. And I don't necessarily know why. Real estate, again, year over year is the best investment you can make, not necessarily from a quick, hey, I want to get money right now type time frame. And I think part of it is that social media and everything has generated a little bit more of the, hey, look at how much money that person, look at how that everyone's looking for that, hey, can I get rich quick? How can I do this? Whether even like influencers, they see these people and they go, oh, look at, they don't realize the effort and what it goes into creating that kind of atmosphere. They just see the fruits of the labor. They see all the fancy this, fancy that. You don't necessarily know kind of how it takes and what it takes to get to that point. I think a lot of people, the younger, they're afraid to get into it because, one, it's a big investment. But at the end of the day, it's still your most consistent investment you can make. Really, from the beginning of our existence, there was the time from basically 2007 to 2012, where if you bought in 27 at the big height, you were going to struggle to sell by 2012 and to get your money back. Not across the board, but other than that, that's the only 5-year period really in our history where you're not going to recoup that. Now, obviously, that's not on every single property.
Yeah.
But when you take the totality and all the averages and everything, that's really the only time period. And if you just waited another 2 years after that, you were starting to get your money back. And not everyone has that ability to be able to wait. Sometimes, hey, jobs are moving them different places, families moving different places, things are happening where they have to. So I like we said, I like the stock market too. I like investing. I like figuring out ways to kind of patterns, trends, things like that. But at the end of the day, you can time it as much as you want. It's not always going to hit. Nothing's 100%. So sometimes you just have to take that leap a little bit and let the chips fall as they may. Especially if you know you're purchasing and you know that you can, hey, this is something where this is going to be a long term.
Yeah.
Anything long term, my good buddy Mike Zier had always said, I was like, well, hey, and when I was starting to get involved a lot more, he's head for CIBC, and he goes, I was like, well, I'm looking to invest. I'm looking to do this or that. Yeah. He goes, okay, well, what are you doing it for? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, are you looking to get in, get out? Are you looking to, it's long term? And I go, well, long term. I go, and at that age, 25, 26, long term. He goes, okay, well, invest a week ago, invest right now, invest 10 hours from now, 2 weeks from now, just go ahead and do it because of what you're doing it for. And that's the same thing I say on a real estate standpoint is, hey, are you buying your forever home right now at age 32? yeah, I know I want to be here. This is where I'm at. Well, then what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
The interest rate is going to be irrelevant in the long run. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to dip in because of the amount of money it is. And they shouldn't be. They should be a little bit more like, hey, let me jump in. Because it is a great way to have a forced savings.
Something I've been talking about, I'm just curious your opinion. I wasn't planning on asking this, but something I've been thinking about a lot is like, if you figure like 2000, because we were talking about 2008. So you figure a lot of the people that were 38 were in their, that was 2010, so 15 years ago, okay? They more than likely saw their parents go through possibly a very difficult time with either a short sale, a foreclosure, and have a very bad experience with housing. And I just wonder if years from now we'll look back and a lot of the reason or some of the reason or one of the reasons why they waited so long. Because everyone talks about, all the different reasons, affordability, student loans, all those things. But I just wonder how much of it is emotionally from what their parents went through with housing and having that experience. And then just thinking like, that's going to happen to me. And I don't want that to happen to me. Because you can imagine as a kid seeing your parents go through that.
Yeah, you learn from your parents.
Traumatic, So I just wonder how much of that,
I think that's a great, I never really thought about it. And actually that makes a lot of sense. Because you learn from your experiences, and your experiences are not just your own, but people close around you to see that and see maybe the heartache and things that people went through at that time, which is unfortunate because when you do have society where there's so much lying, cheating, and stealing going on, it leads to those sort of negative thoughts about what the industry is and how it could potentially play out for you. And that's unfortunate. Everyone's, I think, you got to still separate from that, and you got to try and find the rational side of me, the unemotional. Hey, your parents were, the emotional side is your parents had a hard time. Things didn't work out great. Now let's look at the rational side of it and think about how, again, in our history, how that was essentially stretched out and how many people didn't have that experience.
100%. And I just think we have to manufacture a lot more business nowadays is what I tell realtors all the time, meaning we have to have conversations over an extended period of time. People aren't just buying because it's 3% interest rates. Like you have to talk about homeownership and talk about the benefits. And the other thing is you got to be okay with it may not just be the right time for the customer. There's plenty of times where we, walk away from transactions, but I think there's so much noise and so much confusion around housing right now because of all the misinformation that it's hard to be a consumer because you just don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I try and convey this as well. You got to rely on your own gut. You got to rely on your own thoughts and what you've learned over the years. Because again, not everything's right that comes out of somebody's mouth. The amount of people that will tell me now, "Oh, I YouTubed this" or "I Chat GPT'd it." That's great. I mean, it's fantastic if that's the thing you're relying on. I personally just don't want to rely on what I'm being spewed by whatever else somebody put onto the internet that now is being categorized and kicked out of an AI platform or off a YouTube video that somebody else watched. I'm a little bit more go with what you think is going to be the way that it plays out, and run through all the scenarios and think about, hey, what if this happens? I'm a big also like, okay, worst case scenario plays out. How will I work that?
Yeah.
Best case scenario plays out. How will that be worked? And then everything in between. And just because you can think about worst case scenario doesn't mean you have to weigh it heavier than the best case scenario or vice versa, because again, it's all mathematical. There's all probability of things happening. Could I go through every weird scenario with my clients and tell them, well, this happened once out of my 10,000 transactions, this happened one time, and now I'm going to scare them over something that happened one time? No, it's not necessary to do this. You don't want to necessarily go through all that when it's such a small percentage of something happening. And it's the same way applying to your own life where you're doing things is while that's a possibility, okay, well, let's think about how likely that is to play out. Yeah. And I think a lot of things, our news, everything is, oh crap, worst case, terrible.
Well, it's clickbait too. Like if you wrote an article about how great the housing market was, you get 2 views. Yeah. If you said that market's going to crash 30%, you get 2 million views. So like that's what it's become.
It's a story. It's our television. It's everything. The extremes. It's our news. Everything is to generate viewership and to look at. And the only way you're going to do that is through extremes. Yeah. Because people look at it and they go, oh, no big deal. Oh, Burger King's selling another burger. Whatever.
Yeah, who cares?
Burger King's selling a sandwich that's a burger that's got 18 different buns or so. You're going to go, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's going to make you think about it. And I think that's that instant gratification, that instant, as opposed to trying to build knowledge and figure things out through normal chains, you're attracted to what's crazy and what's weird.
Exactly.
And what was crazy, I always give this example. I think the UFC, when that came on, that was a very, like, people were like, oh my God, this is barbaric, this is terrible. I mean, look at what it's growing.
Congress was involved in the beginning because they wanted to ban it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look what it's grown to. And now what we saw back then that was outrageous is now like, oh, not enough blood. Not
I know.
Because you're desensitized to the extremes.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference in all aspects.
So on the seller side, is there anything that you see sellers like consistently, mistakes that you see them making, or any advice that you give sellers pretty consistently?
Yeah, I guess one that just kind of popped in just based on something happened is you don't want to necessarily transfer your property to you don't want to put your kids into title of your property prior to death. It might seem easy. It is the easy button, but at the end of the day, it's going to hit you a little bit harder subsequent to your passing, because now your kids were in title of your property prior to the death, the way the taxes
And I see a lot of people wanting to do that.
Yeah, and the way the taxes work, and you're trying to circumvent tax laws and circumvent the way things gets transferred, and when in reality that's just going to hit and it's going to hurt from a tax liability. But that being said, not just that. I mean, sellers, I think, again, not being reasonable about what they're selling, and in times when, hey, you're the pièce de résistance because there's really no power struggle and sellers are getting everything that they want. It's hard now for sellers that maybe are sitting a little bit longer or dealing with that, where they have to come to the realization that, hey, listen, it's maybe not that right time, or it wasn't that time, and I'm trying to force a round peg into a square hole type thing. And while it might end up fitting, it's not going to fit the way it should. And you get people that think they have, hey, I'm selling, I always said the joke, I'm selling the Taj Mahal, the buyer thinks they're buying a shack. And you got to find that happy medium where everyone kind of understands, again, that you're working towards the same goal, and that the grass isn't greener on the other side. That's another thing is that one thing I always say is the best offer is always the one in front of you. The best is what you've got right now. While there could be is a 1%, 2%, 3%, is it willing to risk what you currently have for something else? So I think some sellers sometimes get a little bit where they, oh, hey, Uncle Bob told me about this, or Aunt Susie said, hey, when they sold, this happened. Why am I not getting this? And every transaction is different. It all takes on different shapes. So I think to have kind of, to be confident in the people you hire, to do the job that you hired them to do, I think is important. And I think sometimes sellers like to kind of either micromanage things, which, again, they want to be involved. They can be as involved as they want to be. But I think sometimes it gives them too much information, or then sometimes they start going down that negative path.
Or it overwhelms them, and they just almost paralyzed because they just don't. There's just way too much information.
It's way too much information. You're already adding to an emotional time for them. They're selling, hey, a home that they've been in for 40 years, family home. You've seen that.
Kids don't want them to sell.
Whatever it is, you're incorporating more aspects to it. A home is a home while you're in it. Once you sell it, that was your house or that was your home at that point. It's now a house. You've now moved on to somewhere else that you can make your home. And I mean, me being tough with change, I loved my condo when I lived there, and it was like, oh my God, I don't want to get rid of this. This is amazing. But hey, I made my home now, home, and I love that just as much, if not way more.
I know. So let's break it down a little bit. So, what exactly, I just want to get this. What exactly does a real estate attorney do? If someone says, Matt, why do I need an attorney to do a transaction? Like, what are the really main, because, I don't think people fully understand or appreciate kind of like the contract, and even working with a builder. If someone buys new construction, they'll be like, well, why do I need an attorney? And I'm always like, well, the seller has an attorney. And you're not going to use an attorney to buy new construction? That's crazy. So can you just talk a little bit about really basic to a buyer, what your role is in the process? So
you've got somebody that's you got an ally. While you have that with maybe your lender, or you have that with your agent, at the end of the day, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my client to make sure that what's going on is the way it's supposed to go. And it doesn't. Real estate doesn't always go the way it's supposed to go. A lot of times there's little things that you have to kind of rein in and take care of. So the main thing is that contract. So we deal on right now the 8.0 contract, which is an attorney and agent generated contract that ultimately incorporates most of the things that you're going to deal with in real estate. But it doesn't necessarily mean people are reading it. It doesn't necessarily mean certain things that they otherwise should have disclosed or needed to have disclosed per the contract got disclosed. And sometimes it takes a little extra push, whether it's our attorney modification. So every contract, at least that I know of in my history of doing this, has always had an attorney modification period in it, which means you don't have to wait for me to review it ahead of time prior to signing it and getting under contract. You can go ahead and go under contract, sign it, get all excited about your property. Then when I get it, I'm going to review that.
I think that's a really important piece, if we can touch on that a minute, because I think there's a lot of people that hesitate at that point of contract, and they say, you know what, I want to wait. I need to talk to my parents, and don't understand that attorney modification period, which is typically 5 days, right?
Yeah, 5 days for the most part. Yeah, there's some new constructions and things that have different or bank-owned properties that are slightly different, but at the end of the day.
And just to be clear on that, you can sign the contract, and at any point in that 5 days, you can say, you know what, I changed my mind. And not that you want to make a habit of doing that, but just to be clear from a consumer standpoint, you are legally able to get out of the contract.
So I have 5 days to review this contract and to essentially wipe the contract away, to cancel it with no questions asked to the other side, realistically. The one thing I can't technically modify or I can't point to is purchase price. So I can't say, hey, they really didn't want to pay $350, so we're walking away because they're not paying $350 type thing. I can say, hey, it's due to a closing. I can, anything in that contract I point to, and let's be honest, the attorneys, we could find ways and they're probably 20 times over. But it's just a cancel pursuant to the attorney review and inspection period, or just the attorney review, or just the inspection period. Inspection a little different if it's an as-is, no inspection or things. I can't necessarily do that. But attorney review, I can cancel in that 5-day period and walk away. It's one of our biggest things that contract comes in, that date goes on the calendar. I have to have some sort of a letter out, a cancellation, a modification agreement or something, or saying, hey, everything looks great and we're moving forward. Something out by that 5th business day. And so, yes, it does give people a little bit more ability to go, hey, I'm in on this and let's go, and not worry about me needing to see it prior to.
Okay. And then on that, so you have the 5 days, then what would be the next big date that's in the contract?
The
depends inspection?
Inspection is generally within that first 5 days, and not always, it can't always happen, especially in busier times. They don't get the inspector out there soon enough. We have to send an extension for that period. We have to say, hey, listen, the inspection period is lapsing here, and we need an additional 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is, to preserve that contingency, because there's contingencies in these contracts. The contingencies are what protects essentially the person moving forward, their earnest money, what they put into the property already, and then kind of just going forward. Those contingencies are what I'm there to make sure stay relevant. Because if you let that lapse, and let's say 5 days goes by, I commit malpractice and I don't send an extension out or something, that essentially then gets washed away. Now, if I try and send a letter after that, the attorney on their side is going to go, this expired 3 days ago. Sorry. And again, we're all working towards the same goal. So not everyone's perfect. There's been times where, not necessarily in my office, but there's been times where that's happened, where we work together. We go, okay, there was a mix up, something happened. It is what it is. Everybody's working towards that same goal generally. So that's one. The next biggest date though would be then financing type thing. So obviously you being involved, we reach out, we'd say, hey, it's either 5 business days prior to the contract close date, or it's 45 days from the date of acceptance. So if, let's say, the contract close date's 2 months out, or 3 months out, it's not going to be 5 days prior. It's going to be 45 days from that initial acceptance. And then we monitor that. So when we get to that date, we'll reach out, like we reach out to your team. We say, hey, guys, where are we at? What's going on? What do we need? How long do you think? That kind of stuff. And then that way we can give the other side, if we're not ready at that point, we can say, hey, to the other side, hey, we need an additional 5 days to be ready for this, and we send that extension out. They will more than likely on the sell side go, yeah, that sounds good. We can give you additional time.
And I think just everything we just went through kind of talks on the importance and all the communication that happens and all the importance of having an attorney involved to handle all these dates. One of the things I talk about a lot, and I just would love your take on it because I'm probably not explaining it correctly or the way I should, but I always say, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, you have to be either working with a really bad attorney or not communicating with your attorney to lose your earnest money. Like, if you're in communication, there's very few ways you could lose earnest money.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, when you lose earnest money, like, it has to be like a major breakdown. Okay? So do you feel most of the contract in that way protects the buyer in a lot of ways? More so than it does the seller? Because as long as the attorney's sending extensions and the buyer's agent or buyer's attorney is accepting them, like you can keep it. Cause I'll get involved in transactions they've been in process for like 3 months. And I'm always like shocked, and I'll look at the deal. I'm like, this deal's never closing. Like, how did we get to this point? So, like, is that relatively the case?
Yeah, definitely. There's when it comes to the extensions and stuff. I mean, yeah, you realistically, earnest money is important because there's offer, acceptance, and consideration.
Yeah.
So the offer is, hey, I want to buy your property. You're accepting, saying yes, and then I'm handing you money to preserve that essentially relationship or that contract there, and that's the way that it goes. Well, the earnest money, from a standpoint of being able to, the contracts are very seller friendly. They're written to be seller friendly. So if you're involved in transactions, a lot of people will go, oh, my seller's attorney didn't modify anything. There's a lot of times that the modifications don't need to necessarily happen on the sell side because you're already in kind of a pretty good position.
Yeah.
The buy side is where a little bit more modifications will happen to kind of swing that pendulum a little bit towards there. Nothing that's it's all within reason. It's all, hey, this is to just kind of add a little extra element to protect my client's earnest money. And if you're doing it the right way, which all us real estate attorneys, having mentioned it before, we all kind of know each other. We know what's acceptable. We know what's not. I know what I'm going to decline every time I see it. I know what I'm going to accept every time I see it because we're also trying to facilitate a deal. Yeah. We don't need to, it's not the same adversarial where, hey, they send me a modification letter and I go decline to everything, or they're sending me 80 modifications. Unfortunately, there's some Chicago attorneys that don't grasp that concept. They want to rewrite the contract type thing, which gets frustrating because, again, we're facilitating a deal that we know both sides want right now.
Yeah. They've
already signed. They've already looked at it. Now there's things in there that maybe they didn't think about, they didn't know, which is why then we have those modifications, but it's not to reinvent the wheel. So realistically, if you hit all the dates, which is kind of element number one of our practice for the most part, you're not really going to have too many issues. We have to remind sellers sometimes because sellers do get frustrated, and I get it. There's little things that having talked, wanting to potentially get on that committee to help generate the new contract and stuff. There's things that I think I could add to that scenario to make kind of a little smoother or better. But there are problems where, like in a seller's side, they accept a contingent contract, and I try and let them know about that ahead of time. And are they excited to hear that if the person's loan gets denied 5 days prior to closing, that they're going to get their earnest money back and they're going to walk away and now the seller just lost all the market time? Yeah. No, they're not excited to hear that. But it's better that they understand that at that time versus when I give them that bad news 5 days prior to, I say, hey, listen, the buyer didn't qualify for financing at this point. Something happened with their financing. Here's a cancellation. Sorry, you got to start this whole process over again. Now it's emotional upset, and they had no lack of, they didn't have maybe the same knowledge. Some people might know it, but not everyone. And now you've got an upset person here as opposed to somebody that understands kind of how it plays.
Yeah, because I think transparency is the one thing that has the biggest value in our industry on both sides. Like the more transparent, and it's always difficult on your side because you got to be careful how much you can't be, because you're also protecting your client.
Yep.
But I think there's a level of transparency in our industry that if you can handle, it can make your job so much easier. And the less you know, the less you can help and the less you can get to that solution, because we've all been in a position where we're kind of thrown a curveball at the last minute.
Oh, yeah.
And then now we got to deal with it. So how do you handle those last minute, because I'm sure you get them all the time, day of the closing, day before the closing, something happens. Like how do you typically manage that?
So the first thing I would always say is this is a camera moment here as well, is be truthful with your attorney. Tell them everything. Explain what you're thinking, because if you don't make them aware of something, it's going to come back and it's going to haunt you potentially. And not always. I mean, again, this isn't 100%. Some game here. Again, sometimes there's things but you should let them know about what's going on, because then they can help you. They can use parts of the contract that you don't know that can otherwise help you, whether it's on the purchase side or the sale side. Yeah, I guess be truthful with your attorney. Make sure they understand. That way I can then take care of those last minute things, and those last minute things, whether they're walkthrough issues.
Do you have anything crazy that comes to mind? As
here you go. We had a short sale where our client, it was, hey, the bank's screwing him the entire step of the way. Hey, they're doing this. I mean, when in reality, at the end of the day, they forgave 200 and I think it was like 40,000 or somewhere on there. Yeah. They forgave full forgiveness short sale where he's walking away zero, I'm out and on type thing. He decided it was a good idea. I guess real handy guy, didn't necessarily know that at the time, but he stripped the entire house. And when I say stripped the house, he took copper piping. He took hardwood flooring.
We saw a lot of this,
and it
actually.
was a shell.
Yeah.
And they were like, and they sent us pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we just worked for the last 4 or 5 months on this to try and get this to the time frame, and he wanted to take so while he probably didn't want to call us and be like, hey, by the way, this is what I'm doing, we could have headed that off because it eventually did close. It closed about a month later when things were basically redone. The buyers had their own contractor go in there and look and say, yep, things were done appropriately and we're good to go. But it was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So run things by the attorney. I'm not going to go like once I'm told something. Again, this is between us. I'm not going to go to the other side and say, hey, can you believe it? My client's going to want to go ahead and do this. No. So just that fighting over small things too. The good attorneys, as I've gotten older too, it's one of those things. Hey, you're fighting over a $50 item or whatever that they took or they shouldn't have taken or they didn't take, or hey, the fridge handle broke or something. And shout out to Dean Gallinopoulos, Tim Crowley, two guys that do it the right way. And it's here, come on, guys, we're done. Here you go. How do we? Let's get.
Well, one of my first closings, Bob Galligan wrote a check at the closing. For like $1,200, and he was just like, here you go. I'll never forget that, and it always stuck in my head. Yeah, because whenever I ask him, he has a checkbook on him.
Yep.
Yeah. And
it's to make it again because it's not. We're not in it again. I'm not in it for any one transaction. Yeah, and not to say that people. I don't want to say like, hey, your transaction doesn't matter to me because they all do. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to create a bad experience or a bad scenario over one type scenario. We tried to do things within reason. Some people write the bigger check than others. Bob, kudos to Bob. But nonetheless, it's definitely one of those things where again, we're trying to get our client to that finish line where everyone's going to walk away and go, wow, that worked out great. Within reason, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's just one of those things that people don't realize. So the other thing is we talked a little bit about you're starting to do some estate planning. Mm-hmm. So, something I talk about a lot with people, it's probably the one thing that people don't do. So like I look at people's financials every day, okay? Every day, hundreds and hundreds every year. The amount of people that don't save for retirement or enough for retirement, that don't have estate planning, don't have life insurance is alarming. Yeah. Okay. Because if you think about it, nobody teaches you those things. We get sold it later on in life. My parents live at Carolina and, it's like everywhere. So they set up their estate planning just because all their neighbors did, and it's in their neighborhood, and they had someone probably come door to door, and they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and they found a great company. But like, why is it so important? Number one, but when do you think they should set it up? And like, what's the process look like when you meet with someone? Yeah.
So my business partner, Robin, handles all of our estate planning.
So just real quick, explain what estate planning is. Because you'd be surprised, what most people don't even know what it is.
So it's setting up a will, a trust, whether a TODI, a transfer on death instrument for your property. It's basically planning for how your possessions or essentially your financial well-being gets transferred to your heirs. So what you've worked so hard for your entire life. Obviously, a lot of people work really hard for themselves to be able to generate, to be able to live and enjoy the fruits of their labor type thing. But they're also doing it for the benefit of the next generation, their kids, their nephews, their nieces, people that they care about.
And this is a bad way to explain it, but I'll just tell you what was said to me, which made me wake up. I was going to, I just had my son, and my buddy turned to me and he's in the financial industry. He's like, hey, if your plane goes down with you and Jen in it, what's going to happen to your house, your kid, all that stuff? And it would immediately sunk in. Now I had it set up prior, but we were having a conversation, and I think sometimes people need to be reminded who's going to take care of your kid, what's going to happen to your 401k, your house, who's going to pay your bills, or God forbid something happened to one of us, what's going to happen to your family, your wife, your house, who's going to pay the bill, all that stuff. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the dark side to think about. But it is something that, again, death and taxes, the only thing is guaranteed. And again, it's easy for people to put off that scenario because, again, the younger you are, the less that kind of sense of mortality that you have. But in this day and age, seeing people pass away as you kind of get older, you start going, wow, this is real. and how the struggle, whether it's all these people that set up GoFundMes and stuff, there's ways you don't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
There's ways where you can essentially get ready for that. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't necessarily do it. And it is a little sad because not everybody goes at a ripe old age where they've their kids are now moved on and they've got their own families, their own wealth, their own things. They're going earlier where they need to help have that nest egg that they created. It goes to their family so that their family can continue to push and strive and thrive really too.
So what exactly, client sits down with you, they buy a house, they're going to start a family, it doesn't need to happen in that order, but I always say you can be irresponsible before you have a kid.
Yeah.
But once you have a kid, you better have this stuff.
Because
it's not about you anymore.
Exactly. You got it. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's once you have, a college kid that's out of college, 25, he's barely got two nickels to scratch together type thing. Don't necessarily need it. It's not like, again, at that point, there's still what's called intestate succession. So you don't have any estate planning in place. You don't have any will. You don't have any trust. The state still has a way where they dole out what you have. So again, you don't really have anything, not necessarily necessary to do it. You could still set up a trust, because if you set up a trust, that's going to be, you can amend it as time goes on. You can add to it. You can do things. So you can set it up early and continue on. But it's one of those things where once you start having, like you said, you start to have a little bit of a nest egg. You start having some money that you don't want the state to determine where it goes. You'd like you to determine where it goes. And how it plays out, then that's when you want to start, especially when you get married. You start having somebody else that's maybe dependent on you, or you're dependent on them, or you're dependent on each other. Realistically, you want to have something set in place. And then obviously, like you said, when you start having kids, that's when then there's a lot more, because now you realistically have somebody that can't survive on their own. Yeah. That needs something to be put into place so that there's a game plan. And
nobody likes to think about it.
No.
But if you've ever been friends with someone or had someone that lost, and they didn't have that in place, it is, it can wreck a lot. But if you have that in place, it can, and I always look at it as, God forbid something ever happened to me. It's hard enough to go through a loss of a parent or anything, but on top of that, to have to deal with financial, it's not even,
it's one analogy I give is that especially for kind of the more hey, parents getting older, and they've, again, not necessarily for somebody to survive, but hey, you've now worked really hard your entire life. You're not retired, but you got a fantastic nest egg, great home, a great this, that, and the other. I always say, when you give presents at Christmas time, you can have them wrapped by your dad, you can have them wrapped by your mom. This is just stereotypical. But that being said, mom, it's always like that. It's the perfect corner. There's the bows on there. It looks amazing. It takes a lot of pride in it. Or you can have the dad that goes, okay, it's December 23rd. Let's go. Here, just put some wraps.
Or they just pay someone else to wrap.
Exactly. But either way, you got it all, and it's all like Scotch tape beyond belief or whatever. And so you can have that. They're both feasible ways to do it. But you generally want to have it as a little bit more, hey, it's been tightly wrapped and nice, because a lot of people don't realize it, unfortunately, until their parents pass away. And ideally, hopefully, when their parents, again, we hope we go in the order in which natural life is supposed to go. But nonetheless, parents pass away, and now kids have, hey, on top of their own kids that they've got right now at this time in their life, their job, they're just overall friends, all their things that they're doing. Now they have to deal with maybe a scenario that wasn't wrapped very nicely. And it's now creating issues. I've had clients that literally reach out and they go, hey, we've got our parents passed away. We have a $220,000 home or whatever. That we don't know. Can we just let it go? Do we have to sign all these things? Do we have to do all this? And it's amazing to me that an unencumbered property at that level would lead to somebody doing that. And I want to say, man, your parents roll over in their grave right now.
I know,
you discounting what they worked so hard for. So they got to continue to look out for us even afterwards. Is hey, setting that up so that, and while it shouldn't have to always be easy, a lot of times it needs to be, for people to want to kind of follow through on things. And it's amazing what one signature will make somebody go, oh God, I got to do this. So when you set it up right and you do it right, and the person realizes how smooth the process can be because the parents took the time to do that, it makes things a lot easier. And I think that's when I know my friends, they've learned it when potentially their parents have passed away, or even their grandparents, where they go, wow, oh, mom and dad had it so much easier because of all that set in place. I need to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's growing a little bit more. I think people are realizing it a little bit more that that it's something that's necessary that you got to do.
Yeah.
So that your heirs that you care so much about.
Well, even medical decisions,
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize that is like they, unless you have it,
power of attorney, property power of attorney,
all that stuff, so you can sign on their behalf.
Yep.
And do things like that. People don't realize like how important that is until you've been through it and you don't have the ability to make decisions
100%
for your mom and dad. I mean, that's a horrible place to be. Yeah.
And I get the people as well that'll go, oh well, I just got my 2 kids and they're great. They get along perfectly and stuff. And while that very well could be true, I've heard that before. Where again, once the kind of the linchpin of the family, kind of the mom passes away, the dad, the final parent to pass away, leaves, it's amazing what people fight over. And it's also because they're emotional at that time too.
Well,
so
I think it's also too, sometimes there's money involved that they've never seen before in their entire life. And it's immediately brings out like a very dark side of people. Because even if it's $100,000, if you've never had access to $100,000 in cash, like you're going to make dumb decisions.
You got it.
And you're going to run over people to be able to do that. So how often should people update their trust?
Realistically, once you get a trust in place, you're putting things, you're funding that trust. A mistake that a lot of people go through is they might have somebody set up their trust, but they don't actually fund it.
Yeah.
Meaning that a lot of times the attorneys will include funding instructions. And what I mean by that is they say, hey, you got to go to the bank. You got to change your savings account we talked about. You got to change this. You're going to provide this document to them. You're going to say, hey, I need to change the name to the trust basically so that it's a part of that. So that when you pass away, it's easy. You show up to the bank. You show them the death certificate. You show them basically if they don't already have the trust, which you should, but show them that you're operating on behalf of that. Here's what I have. And then you can help make that seamless. You can transfer it into wherever it needs to go. As the executor, there's, again, a trust is going to have an executor of that trust that's going to allow that person to then maneuver it to where it needs to go per the trust's wishes, per the person that passed away, per their wishes. I think it's one of those things where you can continue. So just because you didn't have a new bank account or a savings account at the time then you made the trust doesn't mean you can't still put it into that trust. But then from an updating standpoint, let's say somebody's got it's just the parents. They made that trust for their kids. Well, now their kids are having kids, and they got grandchildren. And they want to maybe have portions where it doesn't go filter, kind of trickle down
to the kids.
It goes directly to the grandkids in some way, shape, or form. Something goes there, sets up helps with a college fund, or does something that otherwise kind of says, hey, this is from grandpa and grandma type thing. They can go ahead and update that. They're going to reach out to, if it's our office doing it, they're going to reach out to us and say, hey, listen, we'd like to update our trust to include our new grandchildren. Oh, congratulations. That's exciting. That kind of stuff. And then really easy, simple. It's the benefit of a trust is there's 3 realistically, and there's a lot of other things, but they're just from a generality standpoint, there's do nothing. It's the cheapest method up front, the most expensive method in the long run. There's a will, cheaper up front, your middle ground, but it's still got some expense later on because it still needs to be probated. You still got to go to court. The attorneys go, okay, yay, I'm getting involved now. Or you have a trust, which it can bypass probate or will bypass probate, assuming you do everything correctly the way it's supposed to be done. And that's the simplest. And it's the most expensive up front, but it's by far the cheapest in the long run. And realistically, you updating the trust, very simple. Very easy to do that. Generally, you're going to go to the same attorney that handled it. And they'll be able to update it.
Do it every couple of years, or
I mean, depending on
as life changes.
As life changes, realistically, as life changes. Typically speaking, like you're not. People they'll call and they'll say, "Oh, I got a new car." Don't necessarily have to do it. Most of the time, it'll say primary. You'll have like primary care car listed, or you'll have something family car listed. It'll be listed so that it kind of is a catch-all to some degree. But that being said, like a will. It can be fought over. It can be say, oh well, when he made that,
the attorneys love to.
It was 30 years ago, and he had this happen and this, and he would have wanted it to come to me. So now you have that potential for dispute. You don't have that same potential for dispute under a trust.
What do they mean by when they say non-revocable? Because I always see like people talk about that a lot.
It's set up. So it's set up and it's in place. It's
and it's just basically
it is. For instance, I guess not necessarily the exact same, but like a will, people say, hey, I've created a will.
Yeah.
And great, that's awesome. We can't amend that. We have to actually restate it. We have to do a whole new will to add the elements. So you're creating it all over again. You're paying extra to do that same process again. So unless you think that there'll be no changes in your life, which is funny because if you're planning that, it's probably not going to work out that way.
It's not going to work out.
But there's certain elements. A lot of things go in, and I kind of stay out of that element. My business partner handles a little more with the tax planning strategies. So there's reasons to do certain trusts, certain scenarios to avoid, again, not necessarily like to avoid taxes necessarily, but to plan it strategically so that you're not paying more than you otherwise would had you planned it properly to begin with.
Absolutely.
So that's one of those things there, whether it's the Fed's threshold, the state thresholds, depending on which states you're in. Again, we're licensed to practice in Illinois. My partner is actually licensed to practice in Alabama as well. But nonetheless, those formats and those things, it changes on a yearly basis. So you have to stay up to date with certain things, especially when you're handling higher level trusts or whatnot, where it's wealth that's beyond that federal threshold, which I think is 12.5 million or something around there.
The important thing is just getting it set up and going to someone like yourself and leaning on you to make sure you get it. The worst mistake is not having it set up.
Not having anything. Again, because then you're allowing the state to
exactly, which is horrible. And the state of Illinois is obviously not as efficient as your office.
Yeah, probably not.
So before we end, but before we end, I wanted to have a little fun at the end. So, obviously I know outside of work, like what's passion? I mean, obviously golf, I know. Yeah. So what's kind of, because when you have a stressful job, you got to have something outside of work. I know family's important to you. You've mentioned your dad a couple times. Yeah. So like what does outside of work look like?
Yeah, I mean, hanging out with my wife Jenny, hanging out with my dad and my mom. Both love leaning on them. Still talking to them. Yeah, as they say, when you become
a parent,
local? They're local.
That's
both live
good.
in Downers, born and raised. Ma's born on the south, or lived on the south side. Grew up on the south side of Downers. Dad grew up on the north side. They didn't know each other until college. Met at college, and we're like, oh, we both live in Downers.
Yeah, that's great.
So it worked out, and naturally, I am coming back. My wife's from Naperville. We hang out with her family as well. Brother Brian's awesome, and like enjoy spending time with him. My close knit group of friends, same best friends since about fourth grade. We still talk all the time.
So how many group of friends do you have that you're still friends with? Because I have a very similar dynamic where we're all still friends, and that's not normal.
So everyone always makes fun. So me, my buddy Matt, and my other buddy Matt.
Yeah,
it's Matt Corcoran and Matt Ruskowski.
Yeah.
My sister always make fun. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when you call a long time ago, you go, hey, Matt, did you talk to Matt?" We have those scenarios. But so us three, we still like to hang out together, spend some time now with families. With them both having kids, and me and my wife now expecting in March our first.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty
Congratulations.
excited about that. We joined the rest of society. And as I said before, I gave a lot to my dad growing up in terms of like combativeness and stuff. So now I'm sure I'll get a lot
congratulations.
of that,
That's a big step. That's awesome. Yeah.
So that, and then realistically, again, as I said, anything that's game oriented, I love watching sports. I love playing them. I still play hockey. I play a lot of golf. Been playing more pickleball, still tennis. I'm in a bags league.
That's awesome.
So I try and do it all. I run from this to that, the other, and kind of, so I have groups of friends that
having a baby is going to change that schedule a little bit. But I will tell you, like, my wife and I started later, so I'm 50 now, so my son's 10, so I was 40 when I had, so there we go. So I was 40, so we started late. And all my friends have, much older kids because my wife and I struggled, and we finally had a baby. And so, like, I could never imagine a world like we're having a baby, prior. Like, because, my wife and I were traveling all the time, having fun. Like, we could go out on the weekends to do dinner. But now it's like I almost couldn't imagine not having a child. And I don't, like, miss, like, either, like, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I'll tell you, like, it'll absolutely transform your life in like a way that you're not even imagining. Everyone will tell you the same thing I'm telling you now, but until you're kind of in it, you look back on conversations like this and you'll be like, okay, now I know what he was saying, because you just can't envision it, like, because you just don't know what that life.
It's not that life experience.
And like every step along the way, like, as they grow up, you can't even imagine it. but it's like, it's just like, it's even more fun than the next. And then, my wife and I, we had one, so we figured, we're going to really spoil the crap out of them, and like, we'll make all the, worst mistakes that we could, but like, that's the fun part.
Yeah.
But it'll give you a total appreciation, but it will change your schedule a little bit.
I know. And I know that, and it's good. I mean, honestly, I was playing baseball, I was playing softball, I was playing all sorts of other sports. I can't even think of the other ones right now, but that I kind of started giving up as I'm getting a little older and stuff.
Well, see, now you're going to be focusing on all those sports.
Exactly. And I told my dad the other day, or probably a little while ago now, I said, man, I just can't get as excited about my own sports accomplishments anymore. They just don't mean the same thing anymore. It's redundant. It's excited for a hot minute and then move on. I'm very excited to have that potential opportunity, assuming my kid has that.
As you probably already know, kids' sports are amazing.
Yeah.
The only problem, but you'll be great as an attorney, is the parents.
Oh, yeah.
Parents are.
I umpired, I refereed.
Oh, yeah. So, like, it's the hardest thing for me to absorb in kids' sports. And my son plays on a travel soccer team, and then baseball, and then flag football. And I don't care what sport, like, it's insane. The parents are insane. Everyone thinks their kids are going to be
the best thing.
Like,
professional athletes. Yeah.
And like, my only advice can be, which you don't need advice from me on this, but just have fun with it, because it goes by so fast. And it's like you're gonna love coaching and getting out of that, and the kids, like, that's the fun part.
Yeah,
you just got to be able to.
Deal with that.
The parents. That's the only thing. Yeah,
enjoy enjoy the moments. And I'm trying to. The older I get, the more I'm trying to soak that up and really realize that, hey, I can't just skip to the next thing.
But you deal with buyers, sellers, and realtors. Parents will be like, this is like just an average real estate transaction for you. So you'll deal with it much better than most. Yeah. It's much easier than that. So so last thing before we leave, I always ask everybody, if money was no object, okay? But I do want to ask you one question. You've mentioned your dad a ton, so I just want to, obviously he's a big.
My mom a lot.
Well, I know, but obviously your parents are a big part of your life.
Yeah.
So was that like the fact that you're close with your parents and they had a big part of your life is obviously a big part of who you are today?
Yeah.
So like, how is like your dad had such an impact growing up? What did your dad do? Was he?
So he was real similar. I mean, we joke a little bit. I love my mom to death. Obviously, she's actually more the kind of more like rational, more kind of like just calculating type thing. Whereas my dad's got a little bit more artist, a little bit more on the emotional side, but he's very rational as well. Both very smart individuals. I consider myself fairly intelligent. And I got a lot of that from them. And but from a standpoint of sports, we laugh because we got all the photo albums growing up, and my mom has we had this album where she's got basically every sporting goods type thing, like a tennis racket, a glove, and these pictures of her just standing there like this. She's like, see, you got it all from me. You say my dad played college hockey, and he's very he's athletic. He can pick up any sport, and that's I love that about myself. I love the fact that I can just go show up at a sport, go play it, and play it to a pretty solid level. And so I enjoy that. And I got a lot of that from my dad. I know. I mean, I got some of that from my mom too, but nonetheless. So I love being able to talk sports with him. I now understand when I was growing up talking baseball with him, I've been naming all these players, and he's like. He goes, I don't know. And I'm like, how didn't you know that name? What do you mean you don't know that name? Now I get it. I mean, there's just so much more rent and space in my brain. I don't know everything.
Well, I notice even with my son, and you'll find this as well, as like with all the different technology nowadays, even Amazon Alexa, like my son knows more about sports and players. Like he'll give me a stat, and I'll be like, "Wait, that's not right." And then I'll look it up, and I'm like, "How did you know it?" Like, like they just like it's like there's just there's bad things about technology with kids, but there's also some things that are pretty crazy. Like he's into fantasy football now. He's 10, and like he knows every player, all their stats, everything. That's the fun part. But it's just amazing like how people absorb more data now. Than like. Back then, because it just wasn't readily available.
It is, and one of the things that I always talk about too a little bit is that growing up, when you asked, when you needed information. My age growing up, I didn't hop onto the internet. Things out. I asked my mom, I asked my dad, and they gave me an answer, and that was the answer.
Yeah,
that was
whether
true.
They made it up or not.
It was the answer. Yeah, exactly. You didn't question it. Nowadays, I think there is a little bit that trust factor starts to wane a little bit because you have where they ask the question and then they go look it up online and maybe it wasn't the exact thing. You can find anything you want online. You can find wrong answers that you think are right, but again, are just what it is. So I think sometimes it makes us a little bit more independent in negative ways as well by having that to rely on as opposed to relying on the people that truly care about you. Again, one other, I didn't talk about my sister, Jenna, as well. She's made me a lot stronger in my faith, man of faith, our Lord Jesus Christ, and just kind of how that's affecting, how that's playing into my life a lot more going forward here. And I truly appreciate that from her. It's definitely something where I never thought, I just didn't, there's things that you just, again, when you start making plans, it's God laughing and telling you, okay, we'll see about that. So it's just funny. It's something I never thought about that I really appreciate from her as well. So I again love learning from the people that I care about and that care about me.
I mean, you sound like you're in a really good place in your life, and that's the best time to have a child. And you know, some people, some of us have like, you know, some people, you know, start a family obviously when they're not, you know, in that great headspace. But I can appreciate all the things you're saying, because it kind of felt like that's where if I would have had kids younger, I may not have dealt with it the same way. And again, like, you know, we make mistakes every day as a parent, and you always look back and you never feel like you're good enough. But in the grand scheme of things, like having a relationship with your dad and mom and sister are what it's all about, and having friends that you were, you know, from, you know, I have the same group of friends. I have the same group of friends, you know, since I was in like junior high, high school. And we always joke around, like if you read our text, you would think that we all hate each other because we're like, we know way too much. We know way too much about each other, and we have every incriminating piece of information about each other. But that's what. But that's what's the fun thing about
it. It's that realness where there a lot of day-to-day life tends to get kind of a little bit more kind of fake, not necessarily always truly it is, and you rely on friends and family to kind of
and
keep
a good friend can always keep you in check.
You got it,
and say like that's not Eric, you know, come on.
It might not be what you want to hear.
My friends will text me every time I post a video or something, giving me, you know, that was my biggest. You know, I wasn't worried about how I looked on video. I was more worried about all the crap I was going to get for all my friends, like every time I posted a video, and I still get it, and I do videos every day. But that's the fun part.
You gotta have that.
So we'll end it with one last question. But what I always love to ask: so if money was no object, okay, and you could do anything, what would have been your kind of route? What would you have wanted to do? Put you on the spot a little bit. Sports related or something totally off the wall? I mean,
obviously, you have the talent to be able to play a sport at a professional level would be pretty awesome. While I had talent to play a lot, I never really, I couldn't give up any one thing to be able to grow one spot more or enough to get to that. And whether or not I could have, even if I did do that, is never going to be seen. But nonetheless, I don't know. I did want to, there was a point where I was like, I would have liked to be a sports agent. I did talk about being president of the United States a long time ago.
There you go.
I've said that a lot, but man, nowadays you got to be hated by half
But I noticed, so you play golf and you play tennis, okay, any other, and pickleball. Those are a lot of individual sports. Is there anything to that you've ever thought about?
So I did. Definitely. It's a little bit of a control type thing where I know I can control what I can control myself and stuff. And a little bit, you're not relying on the team to hold up their end. But I did. I mean, I played baseball a lot. I mean, until I was about 35, and then played softball until about 37. And hockey I still play, and I love those aspects as well. They just take there. It's also, you can't just go do it. I can just go play golf. I don't need anyone else with me to do it. So it creates a little bit more of an ease with regards to doing that. So it's not that I didn't like, but I do like individual sports. I think that onus where it's all on you. Where when you screw up, you can't, there's no, oh, well, he didn't do this and all this. No, it's, you got to look within and figure out why something didn't play out. And that's hard. Having that conversation with yourself and coming to the realization, whether it's work related, sports related, life related, whatever it is, to know how to better yourself, and so that you don't have maybe that disappointment, whatever that may be. again, is not always easy. And a lot of people like to brush that under the rug. And I think I try my best for the most part to embrace it and figure out how maybe, even though I don't might always admit it to things, it's things that I constantly am doing to myself.
And everything you just said is what I always talk about. My wife and I talk about this all the time is like, sports with kids is crazy. A lot of the kids have coaches now at like 8, 9, and 10, baseball hitting coaches. Like it's gotten insane. But like the one thing that I always say is like the things that you learn in team sports and the things that you learn growing up playing sports are things that apply to people every day in life.
Absolutely.
And I can meet someone like yourself and talk with someone and you can see all these parallels to sports. And every day I'm sure you do something where you can play it back to something you learned in a team sport or a golf match or golf is a metaphor for life. I always, joke is like, you can have, for me, not for you, but like a bunch of bad shots, okay? But you have that one good shot.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what keeps you coming back every time.
There was there one commercial that I was like, the epitome of what golf is. Is there's a guy and he's got 3 guys behind him, and I don't even remember who the brand or whatever it was pushing, but nonetheless, he's like, golf's just not really my thing. I don't know, I don't get into it. And he's just talking while he's getting ready to hit a shot, and he hits a shot, and it's like perfect. And it goes right next to the hole. And he just turns and looks at him, and he goes, I'm going to dedicate my life to this sport. It is.
That's exactly it. But that's the metaphor in life, too. It's like,
it is.
And it's so much of that, but it's how you deal with all the bad shots. I always, a buddy of mine.
Not compounding mistakes.
Exactly. A buddy of mine is really, played competitive golf and, never really got, but the one thing he always tells us, which always stuck with me, is like, in a lot of ways, the skill level on the PGA Tour they're all really, really good at golf. He's immaculate, like, it's who's the best mentally. Who can have a bad shot. And the next time they step up to the ball, it's like that shot never even happened. And he's like, if you really break down each round, you can see where a round went bad. It's not like they had a bad shot on 6 and then they did something like a lot of times
it's a good shot too. Just a bad break.
A lot of times it's compounded because it's the mental mistake. And he's like, if you actually break it down, that's where most people spend the most amount of time. It's like they can hit range balls, they can do whatever, but if mentally they're not strong, and I think that's a lot of who we are in our business world too, is like, attorneys that are not mentally strong. And I think that's the metaphor that a lot of people lose sight of.
100%. So much respect for those guys on tour.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
They can go through that and play 4 rounds and stay mentally tough for that long, because it's not short. I mean, golf has got some length to it. So in terms of time. So it's pretty cool to see and to take away from different aspects from everybody in life that do it to the highest level and stuff.
It's great. Well, Matt, this was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
And this was fun. I hope you had a good time. And I just appreciate, as always, like I said, like getting, obviously sitting down with you, you learn a lot about it. Now, a lot of it makes sense of why you are as good as you are, why you do such a great job on files, why so many realtors want to work with you. So it was great to get to know you and have you share that. So I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As always,
Thank you.